right. Hello and welcome back. Today's session is session 4 of the 5-part series between the YMCA of Newfoundland and Labrador and the College of the North Atlantic. So today we have establishing a professional social media presence. Once again, going to be facilitated by Mr. Ted Cadigan, the senior business consultant of the YMCA of Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you, Ted, for being here, and take it away.
Ian, thanks for having me. Looks like we're matching today. Despite the spring day, we went for the all black. That's all good. I want you to let me know verbally when you see this because I'm going to be in presenter mode on my end. So 1 second. You should now be looking at the entire slideshow.
Yep, we are all good.
Excellent. Okay, folks, I'm going to dive right in with a quick introduction. For those of you that are just watching this video, my name, as Ian mentioned, is Ted Cadigan. I'm our senior business consultant at the YMCA, which means you get access to cost-free, commitment-free business planning support services from the Y. That can be in person in St. John's, or that can be virtually. Today's focus topic is on building a professional social media presence. And I'm going to try to tailor the content so that it's representative of a broad audience and individuals at different stages in their business development. It's going to be broken down into a lot of smaller topics. So skim through, skip things that work for you. You'll notice that it's per topic. So start at the top line, look for relevance, and watch from there. But we're going to begin with understanding the tools that work for you. What that means is before you begin establishing your social media presence for your business or planning for your prospective business, you need to identify where your comforts and I'll say your capacity is. Do you often use Facebook? Are you a cursory Instagram user? Do you know what TikTok is? Do you have a professional side to your social media network through LinkedIn? You need to take logical stock of what you've been using and what you have the capacity to use going forward. Not from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective. So set your base. That's the first piece. Number 2, that's about aligning the tools that you're going to use with the needs of your customers. So topic 1 was an inward reflecting issue. This is an external assessment. You need to look at what tools the people that you intend to interface with or sell to are using. For example, if this is a product that's predominantly used by individuals over the age of 55, do they have as strong an Instagram or Twitter presence versus what's on Facebook or other various options? I mean, there's also the difference between the consumer and the customer, where maybe you're in the toy biz and the purchaser is a parent or guardian and the user is a child or minor. In that instance, you need to make sure you curtail where you're sending social media content for the people doing the buying. So maybe that's the price focused component of your social media presence versus where you're doing the actual soliciting or trying to catch the attention of the viewer. Maybe that's on newer, more emerging social media platforms that target a younger audience. So this is stage 2, where you don't only look at what you know and what you're comfortable with, but look to see what your consumer and customer need. And if there's a rift between those things, you need to plan to close that gap. That's number 2. Number 3 is understanding your competitor's presence, which means having a look through a few different lenses at how information about your industry is already being presented. That can mean immediate competitors. So you sell A in place B, someone else sells A in place B. And you need to align how you're presenting or compete with how you're presenting yourself on social media in comparison to that immediate competitor. That's the most obvious version of understanding the competitor presence. The less obvious version is confirming where those purchasable alternatives are coming from on social media. So for example, and for those that have kept up throughout this series, you've heard me talk a lot about the arcade or the movie theater versus the axe throwing business or some kind of seasonal outdoor activity, something where there's a purchasable alternative for the single consumer dollar. And if they have a very robust social media presence and they're drawing a lot of eyes to them, excuse me, you need to align with that as well. So it's not about, I do this exact thing, who else does, moving forward from there. It's about saying, where else could this money go? Where else could this attention go? And making sure you're competitive in that environment. There's also an opportunity, and we might talk about this later, to look at how competitors or would-be competitors to you are presenting themselves on social media, but in different regions that are relevant to your specific customer base. So if you're a barber and you're serving the Conception Bay South area, and you want to look at how a barber serving the St. John's East area is presenting themselves on social media, you may not have a lot of crossover because you've learned through research that consumers have limited capacity or tolerance to drive that distance to a barber, but you might want to look at how they're presenting themselves and align with that because people are seeing this in the same social media spheres. So on understanding your competitor presence, it's the immediate presence of competitor, the purchasable alternative in your region, and looking at comparable businesses of the similar structure and similar focus operating in a different space. So make sure that you're basically up to snuff in comparison. Topic 4 is establishing your support process. That means, are you going to be looking at what components of this you are going to be purchasing? For example, maybe you're writing the content, but somebody else on a third-party platform or through a consultant or through family and friends is taking your photography or doing your graphic design or is scheduling the post or responding to comments. Or maybe there's some of the things on those lists, on that list is things that you're going to deal with, but another component is what you're going to farm out. And I'm not saying your entire support process has to be purchased. You can have other people, even employees or people that are near you and believe in and want to see your business grow, that are navigating some of these pieces. But it shouldn't happen in this reactive, wishy-washy way. You should be saying, you're responsible for this because you've committed to supporting me over this timeline at this frequency. That'll tell you who you're paying or who you're leaning on based on just their willingness to support you. So you know who's responsible for what beyond the scope of what you're going to be doing on social media. Number 5, making considerations for cohesion and integration. And I mentioned this when we did it live. I don't know why I use such convoluted words. It really should say making things fit. And what that means is if you have an existing website, you need to make considerations for, or I should say that word again, you should look at how that integrates with your website, with your Facebook page, with your Instagram page, with your physical purchasing terminal at your business. Is there something small you can tweak with one component of your operation that allows it to align with another? And this can be across social media platforms as much as it can be in the relationship between your business and its social media presence. So looking at how those things can work together is called making considerations for cohesion and integration. Sometimes that takes shopping around. Sometimes it makes you change. It really depends on how much you need things to fit together. It's business specific. Number 6 is called building a relationship with mentors and collaborators. So this is going to tie back into the piece about competitors because you can reframe your relationship with a competitor to call a collaborator. What we mean by that is there somebody that's further down the development line, means the business is bigger than yours at this time, than yours is currently? Can you look at how they're presenting themselves on social media and ask for support doing so? This doesn't even have to be in the same industry as you, but if you have somebody that you can learn from and you want to ask them for help, what's the worst they can say? No, they're in the same place. Beyond that, you want to look at complementary businesses that you can work with, meaning, okay, you're in the tow truck biz and you know somebody in the detailing biz for cars and motorcycles. Is there an opportunity to co-promote and collaborate or provide mutual value to the customer by connecting or aligning your social media pages? So I'm going to consider that would strengthen the validity of your brand. Number 7 is intentional messaging, branding, and language. This comes down to how you speak, what punctuation you use, creating a sense of familiarity and almost a virtual relationship with the customer that's on the other end. We've all seen people that do a good job of this, where we know when we tune into their page what we should expect in terms of cadence, length, environment, quality, where their logos are positioned, when they speak about different components, how often they post. This is about you curating a consistent experience for the viewer. It's really important. Building on this, you need to build a what I call micro schedule, which is how often do you post per week? What time of day do you post? And what time of day do you personally create content or analyze the effectiveness of the content that you're putting out? It's important to remember that this isn't something people love to do, but not all components of a self-employment endeavor are going to be just passion or just skill-based. You've got to have some labor associated with this to fill the gaps, or have the luxury of farming it out so somebody else has to do it. But to bring it back to micro scheduling, you even want to look at what time of day your posts go up so that it's reflective of the needs of the customers. Targeting parents, maybe look at that after dinner window so that there's a fresh post for them when you think they're sitting down to look at their phone. Building a schedule on a macro level, meaning a longer time frame, is about committing to a process for a specific amount of time. Meaning if you say, I'm going to post at 5 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 3 months, and every video is going to be approximately 40 seconds in length, you have to commit to that 3-month window so that you have something to assess the effectiveness of compared to the next 3-month window. And maybe you do 3 weekend posts at only 10 seconds in length, or you're launching a new lens on your social media page. You need to be able to say, why is this effective versus this? And if you haven't committed to doing something for a specific amount of time, it's going to be really difficult to quantify that. Building on that, you have to account for seasonal change. So if you say I'm doing something for 3 months, see how it works, then I'm shifting to doing something else for 3 months. You need to look at if that's the winter versus the spring season. Does your business have a seasonal component, or is your customers' schedule changing throughout the year? That could be the factor to consider. Not all things are created equal. Number 10, paying for the dang stuff. It's about looking at the relative cost of one of your hours versus that of someone else's. If you're a maker or an artisan whose time on task making something can come in at $100 an hour, but you're spending 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a week toiling over social media that somebody else with that skill set could do in a fraction of the time, are you doing an appropriate time value assessment to look at if you're just burying yourself deeper down a social media rabbit hole, or if somebody else could take this off your plate and free you up to use your time in its most valuable capacity? So there's an opportunity here to say, where am I needed for this business versus where am I getting frustrated and staying unproductive? Number 11, mastering the intangibles and the tangibles. This is about looking at and getting feedback on how it's coming across. Are you being your authentic self, or are you pretending you're comfortable in front of a camera? If so, it's probably coming across that this isn't something that you like to do, and you can adjust your branding. We've all seen that sense of something is good, excuse me, on social media. Where you look at content and say, that's crisp, that's clean, that's consistent, the images are pleasing. There's an intangibility to what makes something good. And it's okay to ask for feedback on that from family, friends, and viewers, especially if you have a devoted audience that wants to see you succeed and grow to support the general population. That comes back to tracking metrics and collecting feedback. But I want to double back on the concept of you being authentic and looking at ahead of time. This is for the new entrepreneurs, how in front of the business you want to be. There's a lot of businesses out there where the person behind it is the face and social tie-in to the business for the public. They recognize, Bobby or Julie out front of the business and say, that's the person that runs this. Whereas other businesses intentionally remove the owner operator from the spotlight, so there's a sense of autonomy and transferability for the business. Both have their pros and their cons, but you need to make an intentional choice about how much you want your face and voice associated with what you're building, because you can back off or you can put somebody else in that position. It's really your call. Building on a more specific topic, always narrowing the funnel and the story of the A/B test. So we're going to take all of this and package it down into how do you move forward. And it starts with the concept of an A/B test, which is really simple. It's where you take one component of how you're doing something online or at all in business, and you change a specific piece of it, present the old and the new version, or new version A and new version B, and look at how people interact. Maybe it's putting the menu button on your website in the top right-hand corner, or maybe it's signing off with a specific slogan, or the length of your videos. Maybe you do half of them for 30 seconds, half of them for 10 seconds, and look at how your customer engagement changes. Take that one factor, apply it, see how it adjusts your customer intake or your buy-in on social media, and move forward with what you've noticed as the preferred choice. You can constantly be A/B testing to see what's the better way forward, A or B, B, moving forward with B. Now you've got B, let's look at the next component. Do we go with A or B? A, and you move forward. So you're constantly narrowing that funnel down to a really productive product that's representative of the customer's needs. You might be wondering why Campbell's Soup is written with an exclamation mark at the bottom of this slide. And that's because they've been doing this for decades, but in small enough increments that you don't notice the changes in their label, in their presence, in their branding. So they need to stay current and update, but they need to do it in such a small fraction that you don't physically notice the can has changed, or the product, or the messaging, or the brand, or the logo have changed. So they do this all the time as well, and that's a conglomerate company. Number 13, curate, curate, curate. Bit of a slogan here for you. If it's old, let it fold. I believe that all too often people want to create a space where there's a laundry list of things that they posted about in previous years. They think it creates a sense of history, a sense of authority. If you can go back to a post from 2012 and look at what the Boxing Day sale was, it's my belief that that is an unnecessarily cluttered and convoluted presence on social media. If something is irrelevant or old or is a season ago in terms of sales or messaging, cut it away. Make it so that people don't have to scroll through and determine what you're doing today, so that they can get an image of how they can work with your business today. If you want to keep a catalog of things that you've done or dredge up old content, you can keep a separate private page or a folder on your own. But make it so when somebody signs in, they get today's information on operating hours, promotions, logos, staffing. The whole thing should be relevant and current. It's okay to have that brutal feedback piece where you ask people how you could be better. It's okay to be open to new perspectives and learning about how people believe you should go forward. Even if you're not going to take that advice every time, it doesn't hurt to know. There's my contact info. If there's anything I can do to support you as you build that social media presence, let me know. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Ian.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ted. There's a lot of great stuff in there. The Campbell Soup one, it always ceases to amaze me. I mean, they've been changing their brand so slightly over how many years? Like 30 years more probably. No one would ever know. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So it really shows you how important it is to keep up to date with these things, and keep on revolutionizing and keeping up to date. So yeah, it's really important. So thank you, Ted. So like I said, that was session 4 of the 5-part series. So keep an eye out for session 5, which is building a financial roadmap. And that'll be the last one of this 5-part series. So again, Ted, thank you very much for doing these. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on the website, and also Ted's information was posted on the last slide there. So thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ian. See ya.